Hello everyone, welcome back, and today we're going to be covering the Explodatorium for the Bounding Soul route for any percent. Now this stage is another stage with global cycles, so I'm going to be using my timer once again throughout the stage so you can try and keep up pace. Beginning from the moment the screen fades completely to black, this stage has very consistent global cycles. However, the tricks that you're going to be doing to meet all the pot lids and the fire traps when they come up, they're pretty tight, pretty tricky. There is a small bit of wiggle room, and I actually got a run where I was a little ahead of schedule, so you're going to see what happens if you're going a little faster than you normally would, but don't expect to have this happen every time. Previously on Explodatorium, we had a weapon and we had much more darkness. This time around all we have is Judgment Rush and Rail Mail, so we're going to be making the most of it. We also still need some money, so we're going to be breaking a couple checkpoints. There is a possible checkpoint you don't have to break, it depends on how you're doing on money. But overall, this route is pretty tight, so I would consider following the route as I'm demonstrating before you make your own adjustments. Now this room with these rats is actually one of the reasons why you have to be fast, but not too fast. It's a very strange middle ground that you have to find. And this long water room has a new trick that was found a little while ago by Wes Beardtooth. It's a little difficult. I actually tried to go for it and didn't get it. You're going to see that I'm still going to end up with a pretty good Explodatorium time, and I will show off how to do the trick later on. But this is the Alchemeister. It's actually very dangerous to go into this fight with 2 health or less. 1.5 is about the max that you ever want to enter this fight with, because you're going to take a full heart of damage as he transforms, and if you don't have good timing with your swing once the Alchemeister finishes his transformation, you're going to get hit by his body, which will also deal a full heart. So it's very likely that you'll die if you don't pick up the health. And as I'm finishing this fire trap room, you can see my timer is around the 145 mark. That's actually an average Explodatorium, usually 1 or 2 mistakes at most that were not costly at all. That's about what I'll end up getting on my runs. If you can get a 142 by the time you finish that room, you're actually looking in really good shape for a best possible Explodatorium. And lastly, we have our good friend Plague Knight waiting for us. Another reason why this route is a lot more dangerous and less likely to be beginner friendly. You don't have any weapons for this guy, so this is a mix of low percent and just the rail mail, which can be useful, but overall rail mail is not going to be a huge determining factor in your success with this fight. It's still up to Plague Knight's teleportation and how you adapt to him. But yeah, this is a not an easy stage now, and it's at least fortunate that it's out of the way early so you can knock out that bad RNG. At 239, 240 is really not bad for the entire stage at all. Plague Knight can cost upwards of 8 seconds with bad RNG, so you really want to make sure that you practice the fight and the many different things that he can do to you. Now we're back at the tower because I actually want to show off a better way to mash through menus. You can watch it in slow motion here, but you can see that I'm actually going to throw the money extremely quickly, and that's because I have 2 buttons bound to start. Now having 2 buttons bound to start is great for map movement, but it's also very useful for this menuing trick, and I'll explain how I do it again really quickly. So the input for this, because I use L1 as my start, is I approach Manny, I make sure I'm on top of him, and then it's up, L1, start, start, up, L1, start, start, up, L1, start, start. It does take some practice getting comfortable with this motion, but when you do manage to get it down, it's very satisfying to be able to get through this menu as quickly as possible. And it can save you at least half a second to a full second and a half off of any typical mashing of start with just one hand. So once more at full speed, just keep an eye and listen to the sound. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And now with a menuing tutorial out of the way, we can go straight back to the meat of this episode, which will be completing the Explodatorium. So at the beginning of the stage, nothing crazy. You are, again, going to be on a global timer from the beginning, so try to keep up pace. You want to jump into this screen transition so you could be mashing your relic and get your Judgment Rush on the earliest possible frames here. And one of the things not necessary, but if you want to land quicker and thereby start grinding sooner, you can always cut to cancel your ledge hop animation, but again, not going to be necessary to meet this global timer here. Be mashing Judgment Rush as you enter this room. You ideally will get Specter in his Judgment Rush animation very close to the top. He barely will have entered the room at all. Now in this first long room, there is a small bit of leeway, but you really don't want to mess up early on because you need a elevator platform to be at a specific spot. Cut early on Pink Skelebro so you don't bonk into the wall when you try to cut him twice. And again, cut early on this guy so that he is still rising. This means that after one cut, you can do a jump and dash attack to climb the rest of the way up. Get as short of a hop as you can to break those dirt blocks, and make sure you cut very quickly after landing in the water, or you'll just grind straight into the pink skeleton after the chompy. For this pink skeleton, I like to jump over him and do a backwards dash attack off his the back of his head there. And here, you can either continually grind or you can jump. I like to jump for safety, but I was pretty fast on this cycle, so I almost bonked into the wall. Just make sure you make adjustments. Keep note of every little change that happens so that you're not losing too much time. Now, this room doesn't have any global cycles to it, so you can kind of keep dying and practicing this room by itself. And make sure that as you're jumping over this gap, that you're either not touching at all or barely bonking your head into that platform. If you have to short jump it, just be wary that you'll probably need to be rushing through these next couple rooms. This room, again, nothing crazy, same strat as before, but keep in mind what we're looking for is the pot lids. Those are the first global cycle we're coming up on. Now, in this room, it's possible to not have to let go of right. If you do a short hop, you can react in time to just grind and continuously jump. I like to let go briefly just to make sure I actually land on that platform. And as you're jumping over this pot, you just want to get a little bit of distance grinding against the water so that you clear this jump without having a ledge hop. Now break this checkpoint in 2 jumps, jump one more time so that you can start a grind and pick up this money. And I like to jump into the next room because this pot lid could be coming up if you're slow. In that case, you probably already missed out on a cycle, but for me, it's always down, and I like to make sure I land on it, jump over the gap, and then I like to position myself so that I can do an up dash attack on this chompy. Now, you could keep grinding, but you saw that I actually hopped because I need those pot lids to be at the apex of their launch. That's because as I enter this next room, which has a bunch of pot lids, I also happen to be entering a room with rats in it. Now, rats are a local cycle, which means that their movement begins as soon as I enter this room. The pot lids are going as soon as I enter the stage, but these rats' position is very important to be able to damage boost appropriately. So in giving myself that very minimalistic time here, like the pot lid, I'm barely catching this cycle here. And that's done on purpose because as I make it over this ledge, and you'll see as I get to the rats later, that they're going to be in a much more favorable position. And we still have enough time to pick up this skull, which we will be needing to get the bounding souls after this stage is done. After picking up the skull, you may need to waste a little bit of time while waiting for the pot lids to rise and then fall back down, so climb as you need to, adjust accordingly. And then once you grind off the pot lid, do a jump onto the next set of pot lids. You'll either kind of catch them and then get sucked onto them, or you'll just land casually atop them. But as you approach the stone block, jump to it and then cut it once on the way down. Once more on the way down will kill the chompy, and you'll continue to grind without getting hit by any of the flames. And from this point, you want to be mashing Judgment Rush, because as soon as you're airborne, you'll be using it. It'll target the chompy on the edge of the screen there. And because of the way that we entered this room, the rats are actually going to be, the first one is going to be walking towards us, so we can actually do a dash attack to the rat, start grinding, and then you can either cut as you approach the second rat or jump into a dash attack as I did. Either one is fine. Just make sure that you do hit this rat before he turns around, and you will get him to fall down into the pit with you. As you and the rat fall down into the pit, make sure that you are facing left. The rat's explosion will knock you to the right, and the rising pot lids will push you into the ceiling, but because you're invincible briefly, you'll actually fall through the pot lids, and you'll have an opportunity to start grinding immediately to the right and enter the next room. Now, this is just the first of global cycles that we're trying to catch here, and doing this successfully means that you're on pace for one of your better Explodatorium times. So let's take a look at all of this again. Again, get to the middle, hesitate just briefly because I got there super quick. You'll barely be able to catch this cycle, get the skull, and then you would start grinding, break the stone, rush, dash attack on the rat, hit the next rat, damage boost, and proceed. Now in this next room, we need Judgment Rush again, but instead of mashing it out, we're actually going to casually press it. Once we get about where these spikes are, just a little early in the room is fine. And the reason why is because when you target this kettle egg with the pot spider here, his droplets are falling in such a way that if you mash it out immediately and try to grind to the right, your invincibility from Judgment Rush will wear off, and this fire droplet that I'm grinding through right now will hit you. However, in waiting just that small little bit, the fire droplet will actually not do damage to you, as you'll have an opportunity to grind through it at full speed before your invincibility wears off. Now the next room is another long room and has a very difficult setup toward the end. This is also the potential checkpoint you could leave if you didn't want to break it. Say you think you have more than enough money, you could skip out on this checkpoint. It would help you catch an earlier cycle. But first you're going to jump up here, grind through the slime, one slash will get you through it, and then as you approach the Macabro's potion, wait until you are just about to run into it before you hold left and do your attack. This way you'll damage boost in the appropriate direction. If you try to do this too soon, you'll more than likely target the slime and do a dash attack back to it or the Macabra. Now this room is also entirely local, so you'll get plenty of chances to practice it. Make sure that you do so. Practice being minimalistic with your jumps at the start, and then you'll have plenty of time where you can kind of adjust as you need to on this middle platform where you're fighting against the current. Typically, I need to slow down just a little bit as I get on this platform, so as I do this jump, I kind of wiggle a little bit to the left, and that's because another Macabra is about to spawn with a potion, and in doing so, since they're entirely based on the position that you are in on the screen, I make it so that he drops the potion into the pit. Now you only need to do one cut to make it past the slime. Sometimes I do two, but that will make it a little bit harder to jump before I would fall down. And then this is the trick by Wes, but I screwed it up here just to let you know what I'm going for. You're trying to cut this pink skeleton as he's coming up, and then you have to do a jump dash attack, kind of like you did earlier in the stage, but I cut a little too early. The reason why you want to do this as early as possible is because in getting that up dash attack off the pink skeleton, you'll just barely be able to get past this plague minion with a clean dash attack that does not actually bonk into him. Otherwise, you'd have to do what I'm doing here. If you have more than one health, this is fine, but be careful if you have less, because he can do a full heart of damage. He also does give you 100 gold if you choose not to do Wes's strat, so there is some money to be regained there from killing him. And if you do need to heal, please pick up this dinner plate. The Alchemeister, again, can easily kill you if you have less than 2 health. So let's take one more look at this long room. So here's the full long room with Wes's strat included. The backwards damage boost, adjust your hopping, make sure that you don't get hit by this potion. Again, early cut, and then whiff dash attack. Now, make sure that you, if you need to heal, go ahead and pick up that food. Otherwise, I hope that you have practiced this fight quite a lot, because grinding and turning around with rail mail, it can be very difficult to ensure that you don't bonk into the wall behind the Alchemeister. It won't be possible to kill him before he transforms. At best, you'll leave him with just 2 HP. So as you approach him, you want to be just a little bit to the left. This will allow you to do 2 cuts and turn around before you would bonk into the wall. Make sure that you hold left. And the way I like to describe this is I am mentally acknowledging, yes, I did hold left before I start doing my attacks, because you're trying to grind to a halt and then cancel that stopping animation with 4 more cuts. After your 4 cuts to the left, you do 2 cuts to the right, then you rinse and repeat. And the second time around, this is where things can get tricky, because the potions that he is throwing up, one of them will basically be almost always like right on top of you. You can always avoid this. However, this is why it's a difficult fight, because if you take too long doing the first set of attacks on him, typically this potion will hit you before you have a chance to jump. To help negate the chance that I will be hit, I like to, as I'm doing these last 2 cuts facing right, I like to jump to the right a little bit just so I don't fall into that explosion. Then I jump left some more so that I don't grind into the wall as I start grinding for 2 more cuts to the right and then 4 more cuts to the left. You'll barely be able to get that 4th one. It won't even look like you actually got a 4th attack in on him. But you'll know for sure that you got that 4th attack in on him if after the transformation you time your hits and he only has 2 hits left. And again, as you can see, I only have half a heart left. So if I mistime this swing, and I'm very used to the timing for this, but if I mistime this swing, I will die. So typically in runs I will get that food to make sure that I don't have to be as precise, especially in a race type of setting. And with 2 more cuts, he's dead, and then you just have to wait. A small bit of food will come out, so you'll have an opportunity to fully heal and pick up this money. You will be, you don't necessarily need it. There is a little bit of leeway in this run, but every bit helps, and you'd rather not go out of your way for extra cash later. Again, here's your Alchemeister at full speed. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, jump. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, jump. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Now this next room is another global cycle based room. These fire traps are also going to be based on how long you've been taking throughout the stage. And because I got hit in failing to do Wes's trick earlier, these fire traps are up. And I'm going to show what happens if you are at a half cycle. You have a potential to catch up to the previous fire room setup. But what you see me doing here is you try to get a clean ledge hop without getting hit by the fire, and then I actually delay just a little bit so that when I land on that fire trap, it's not up and I don't get hit by it. You will climb the ladder and get damage boosted to the right. There really is no way to avoid taking that damage, but you should be on full health, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Make sure that you grind a little bit before you jump so that you can clear this pink skeleton and make it over the ledge quickly. This will allow you to get just barely past this fire before it spits out at you. And for this gap, it is possible to just grind straight off the ledge, hold right, and you'll ledge hop. In case the fire that's up right now is down, you can just make it over that gap by grinding. But again, you'd rather hop, make some quick jumps, and then as soon as you skate off this ledge, a Judgment Rush will target that Chompy. Now, Judgment Rush on the Chompy will leave you invincible briefly, so even if the fire is up when you get to that last pillar there, you won't take any damage from it as long as you grind quickly. So let's take a look again at the beginning of this room. In case you didn't get here perfectly on time, something messed up and you didn't get a perfect fire trap cycle. You're gonna see me stall for a second, but say you end up in this room and you know that the fire trap is about to burst any moment. If you think you can make it, then just jump and turn around, do a damage boost onto the following pillar. Now this is still very tight, and I honestly wasn't quite as optimal as I could have been through this small section right here. But if you do go fast enough, then once you make it past this pink skeleton, you won't get hit by the fire trap that's on the other side of this wall. I realized that I was losing a little bit of time though on that climb, so I actually turned around to make sure I would damage boost the right way. You're invincible, so you can kind of just jump through without worrying about that fire trap. Go quickly though, so that you don't get caught by this fire trap, and then you can just Judgment Rush on the Chompy to continue. And in this room, you actually don't want to pick up that darkness because you're no longer doing a Judgment Rush to get across. You just have a little bit more than one full darkness, and that's important because you're actually just barely going to have enough for the last 2 Judgment Rushes that you'll be doing in this stage. Cut the stone brick, do your best wall jumps. This section can be very tricky. Just make sure you practice it, and make sure that you are climbing the ladder toward the end. You cannot jump into the next screen, you have to climb to trigger the transition. Now in this long room, you're going to jump to break this checkpoint, break it in 2 jumps, and then as you jump 1/3 time afterwards to pick up the money, you'll do a Judgment Rush to target this Beto. You don't have to do this Judgment Rush, but it's very easy to do so. The setup through the rest of the room is pretty much guaranteed. Now I like to cut a little bit early so that I make sure I don't accidentally do a ledge hop off of one of those dirt blocks. This will also be so that you can get here and jump over this fire. You don't want to go too quickly, which is why I like to Judgment Rush. It wastes just enough time. That is so that you don't end up grinding onto the trail of fiery explosions going down the water. Judgment Rushing the rat at that particular spot will make it so that the rat jumps left. That way you don't have to worry about him being in your way as you grind across the last dirt platform. 3 cuts will get rid of the Plague Minion, and that is an extra 100 gold you can pick up if you so desire. There is some food to the left of the checkpoint if you really need it. 3.5 is more than enough, but you do want to have more than 2, I would say, because Plague Knight is extremely random. You could end up damage boosting a lot. I like to split when I land here, so a 208, 209, pretty average stage section for me. Now again, enter the room facing right. Plague Knight will appear behind you, and then jump to the right wall. And as he jumps, you just want to make sure that you get in position to get 5 swings in on him. The small bit of delay walking up to him instead of hitting him sooner is actually to prevent him from teleporting away early. So these 5 swings is the most amount of damage you can get to him before his first vanishing act. Now as he appears, he can be literally anywhere. He didn't do too bad to me this time, appearing somewhere in the middle of the room. You want to try and get some damage in on him. Now after his first jump, it is possible that when you start attacking him, he will actually just stand there for a couple seconds. So just gauge whether or not he starts moving immediately. You'll also notice that sometimes when you're fighting Plague Knight, if you hit him with a dash attack while he's trying to throw a potion, he'll just immediately start moving away. You can use that to your advantage if you don't like where he's going to be standing. But for the most part, you want to be doing as many grounded cuts on him as possible. And you always want to make sure that when he does his big leap that he's trying to get into a corner, so position yourself so that you're going to be there at the corner when he's there. You especially want to be watching his health once he gets down to 4 full bubbles, because that's when he's going to start setting up his room full of vats, which is your opportunity to kill him before he disappears and summons 2 more clones. So again, one possible fight from the beginning, they all basically start the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He'll teleport, find him. He's the one with the blue flasks. I kind of messed up just a little bit on doing some solid damage to him, but I wanted to instead get to the right corner, which was a pretty good decision this time. I actually didn't get too bad RNG there. I probably only lost a couple seconds, but yeah, Plague Knight can be very tricky. Please go practice him. He tends to do a lot of crazy different things. Strictly tunneling and DPSing Plague may not always be the best option, so get used to his movement and make sure that you can set it up so that you can finish him off quickly. Thank you for watching. The next episode will be extremely brief. It's just the memory of adventure, same as we knew it before, but this time a small new trick, and we don't need as much money. So till next time, stay spooky.